Welcome to the Evolve Talent and HR show. We are building the rooms where HR and talent leaders learn, connect, and evolve. I'm Anna Morgan, and this is the space where people first leaders come for courageous conversations. Whether you're leading from the C suite, emerging as a new voice, building community, or driving change within your organization, this show is for you. Every episode brings voices that are driving change in the HR and talent community. We're going to get into the strategies, conversations, and movements that matter. Because here's what we know. Every conversation matters. Every introduction, every shared experience, it creates momentum that extends far beyond the room. And that is the Evolve multiplier. When we collaborate over compete, when we connect with intention, the opportunities, the relationships, and the impact compound across our entire community. You've tuned into a podcast, but this is actually your connection to the entire Evolve ecosystem. New episodes come out weekly. Now it's your turn to evolve. Welcome. When Kyle Samuels told me 2026 was a go, I believed him. Kyle is the founder and CEO of Creative Talent Endeavors, retained executive search and outplacement firm that works with director to C-suite leaders. He's a top 25 HR influencer, cancer survivor, and someone who's built not one, but two Fortune 5,000 companies. But what really stood out to me about Kyle, especially when he spoke at Evolve, he talked about something most companies completely get wrong: candidate experience and employer brand. That is an advantage. We met 3 years ago at Transform, and I knew that he was a future BFF, Evolve speaker, and now great friend. So Kyle, welcome to the Evolve Talent and HR show. I'm so glad to have you. And for those that don't know you, and maybe I didn't quite get in the intro, why don't you do a quick intro of who you are, what you're all about, and then we can dive in.
Awesome. Well, you did a very good job, Anna. Very happy to be here with you. And Evolve was amazing earlier this year. Can't believe it was earlier this year, but time is flying. But you basically hit the nail on the head. But I would say I like to think about talent in a different way, right? Doesn't always make sense when you go left and everyone goes right. But that was kind of what I was talking about in the presentation, in the sense that we're in the midst of everyone, employers looking at, oh my goodness, this is great. I can use AI to screen and I can lower my cost on human beings. And heck, a lot of people aren't working right now, so I'm going to get so many resumes. And
So many.
yeah, you're getting a lot, but you're not getting the ones you want, which I know we'll get into later. And I think some of that automation and taking the humanity literally and figuratively out of the recruitment process is why you see those stories on business. It's always Business Insider with someone, I applied for 500 jobs and didn't hear back, right? In the little power pose. And the reason why you didn't hear back, there are myriad reasons. But long story short, I would say that this is the worst I've probably seen. The way that companies are treating candidates, even since the financial crisis, 2008, 9, 10, like I'd say that this is bad. This is bad.
It is bad. Reflecting back, we had the privilege of being introduced by Adam Posner at Transform now 3 years ago. I would say in the fall, we ran into each other at the Hiring Shouldn't Suck dinner with Scalus and Brandon. And at that point, we were definitely talking about some of the changes. But between that dinner in the fall, from when you spoke at, the conference in January, what has shifted for you? And I know just mentioned it's been a rough road out there. What's happened in that window since the fall from Evolve until now?
So I've seen more people kind of realize that the whole we post a job, we get 500 applicants in a day is
Mhm.
fool's gold, because typically there are going to be very few they want to see, right? And so ironically, I've seen people come back to using, whether it's retained search, contingent search, but saying, you know what, there's a value in having Anna find exactly what I want and bring them to me versus me just trying to boil the ocean and sift through who's ever shaken through the ATS and hope, by the way, that my ATS did not kick someone out for certain reasons. So one of the things I talked about in the presentation, I told a story, obviously a client that will go unknown, but they had set up the AI in their ATS. It was like a director of HR job, right? And so it was like, hey, we only want to talk to people who are directors or senior directors, right? But again, what AI doesn't have that we have as humans is discernment. And so it's going to do whatever you tell it to do and typically not more, right? And so whereas you as a human recruiter, if our client is a $10 billion company looking for an HR director, and this is a company that has tens or 20s of HR directors, right? There could be a candidate who would be amazing for that role who is a VP of HR at a $1 billion company, right? So they're bigger fish in a small pond, but let's say their share of responsibility and what they're doing is the exact same thing that they'd be doing at the other company, except the other company has 8 or 20 other sections that big, right? But we might say, oh, it can make sense. And you've gotten the skill set. I talk to leaders. So my point is the AI was just kicking those people out because it's like, oh, VP, sorry. And so
Uh-huh.
again, there has
Every
to be an
company
agreement.
has different methodologies in their title assignment. And I
Mhm.
remember when I was coaching job seekers, specifically in the talent and HR space, really working with them through that. Like, companies give wonky titles, and we want to lean into that Boolean keyword search that is clear and not clever, because clear actually gets you found and not kicked out of an ATS that utilizes AI maybe in not the best ways.
Right. That's right.
So, I mean, more on your session, which was candidate experience, employer brand advantage. Like, you were talking about one client. Walk us through that not so favorably candidate experience, what that looks like at the executive level, and more on what companies could do better, not necessarily what are they doing wrong.
So I will say this, if it makes you feel better, executives and people with C in their title are getting treated like crap as well. There's someone that I know, like I know them like in real life. Cause you know how it is. There's your friends on the
They
internet and
are
stuff like
not a robot.
right. But they're a C-level executive at a multi-billion-dollar company that you would 100% know. Everyone watching this would know. And they were interviewing and they got to a point where it was like, hey, everyone loves you. The next step is to fly you out and have you meet with the CEO.
Okay.
So she waits a few days because they talked about when the date would be. Big job. Long story short, nothing. Wait another day, nothing. She reaches out just like, hey, I'm just trying to do this. And the EA says, you know what? I'm so sorry. We ended up filling that job. So it went from, we love you. Come on. Now, again, coming out for a final
In
round doesn't
a
guarantee
couple
the
of
job.
days.
But she never found out when I told her it could have been an internal, it could have been the CEO's old, like, oh, wait, Anna, you will come to my new company? Great. Come with me. There's all these things that happen. But so that's not the problem. No job is guaranteed. But the problem is how it was managed with the client or the candidate, right? Now, look at her. She's out of here. She's got a great job, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine the heartbreak if you actually don't have a job and you're like, okay, this is it. I'm ready. Game on. I'm going to show my stuff. And not only do they not tell you, you have to chase them to get the surprise of your life. When she was like, I figured the worst they were going to say is we had to delay it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not, we completely filled the role and totally forgot about you.
Yep. Yep. And so what I would say is, you're right. Let's talk about positive things that people are doing.
Well, I also think there's an opportunity to tie back in what you were mentioning around the shifts that you're seeing in working with search firms like yours and other models, because they're seeing the value of interim fractional talent opposed to hiring FTEs and then having to lay them off a year later as well.
I'm seeing more like the big companies that we work with, they're still traditional in the sense that they're looking for, well, listen, we don't control all their hiring, but when it
Right.
comes to us, they're focused on FTEs, executives,
Mhm.
director above, et cetera, right? But as you know, in the startup world or small business world, fractional has really taken off, right? And there is still some, I'm not afraid to share, obviously I won't say whom, but two weeks ago, it was like back to back. I was like, oh, we're on fire. I had two people introduce me to founder CEOs who were looking for talent in their company, right? And
Mhm.
so in the first scenario, you're talking about your fee. I tell him what the percentage is. He tells me, we talk about like what the comp we think it would be. We agree it should be this.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. He's like, give me the SOW and the MSA. He reads it and he goes, wait, is this the fee? And I go, well, yeah. And he goes, oh, wow, that's higher than I thought. In my mind, I'm like, dude, 30% of your number, like it's right there. But okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then there's someone else who we didn't get the super specifics. You know how it is. You send it out, then you don't hear anything, so you gotta chase, but not chase so much that you're annoying. It's the whole dance that we do as vendors,
To
right?
show
Everyone
that
does it.
you're ready to earn the business and what separates you from other competitors per se.
Exactly. So, but he hit me back and was just like, yeah, we want to go with basically contingent, right? Now, usually what I say is
Be here. when you're ready.
No, I literally did say I said, "Let us know, we'll be here." I don't wanna sound like a dick and say when, so I said, "If you need us," right, just in case. Well, here's the thing, usually, I
Hey,
just didn't.
wait. Let's just pause for a second. Hey,
Yeah,
companies, when we say if, we actually mean when. Love all recruiters.
that's a fact. You just let a industry secret go. But this gentleman was just like, "Hey, you don't wanna do that," and usually my philosophy is this: if you are willing to pay for contingency, that means you're willing to pay, you just are scared that the person won't be able to deliver and you still paid money and gotten 0 out of it, right? So that's really the fear.
Let's dig into that a little bit. I mean, I always think about how much is it costing them to not have the seat filled, right? How does it impact the other key players in the organization or team? Because they're either having to pick up those initiatives or overflow work, et cetera, as kind of starting points to show the value of the type of search that you do. Because one, a lot of times you have a strong pipeline or area of expertise that you focus in that you can pull from, right? Where you focus on executives, say in hospitality or whatever your niche may be. And I truly think going back to candidate experience and tying into employer brand, those shops and organizations that have been building trust with a pipeline focused set of talent are really going to be the standout go to resources as we continue to get through this AI disruption. They want to be forward thinking mindset and say, we want to embrace AI and all this tech, but we're seeing some trends where the human is getting lost in those spaces. And I really value these types of conversations that give some tactical ways that organizations can blend both so that they do have a positive candidate experience. And then when partnering with organizations like you, that they know they're getting the top 5% of talent in that particular segment.
And listen, that's the difference. I'm never gonna say that there's no reason for contingent, right? Like, if you have a role that it's more of like a numbers game, like, I just need a manager of accounting, right?
Yeah.
And they could come from any industry, da da da, have at it, right? Because the contingency firm's gonna have a lot of people and they're gonna do it, right? But I've had that happen when I've worked with people who are used to contingency and we're doing these super detailed candidate profiles and talent mapping and doing all this stuff and setting up weekly meetings. They're just like, whoa, what is this? What is this? Because they're used to just like, here's a resume. If it works, it works. Because it's contingent. You're not going to put all that effort because you're not even getting paid, right? So it's
Right.
fill it on paper. Here you go, right?
I'm sorry. It's like, I hate doing work for free.
Right. Sometimes that can work, but my grandfather always told me the best is the cheapest in the long run. And some, to your point, lots of times they come back because they think that it's like, oh, hiring Corn Ferry and hiring Bob the recruiter who works on contingency is the same thing. I'm just, no, it's not. It's not. And it's not
No.
just the price. It's not that he's small and give you better price. He's giving you a whole different ball game.
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny that you mentioned your grandfather. I remember in my early career, my mother took me shopping and I had to get some, work clothes. At the time, I was making probably like $28,000 a year or $32,000 a year plus 6% GP. We're walking around and we pick out this pair of black pants. And I remember being aghast at how expensive just a black pair of pants was, right? And my mom gave me a little lesson in that moment and explained to me that it's like quality is something that can give you such a better ROI, right? And these are well made black pants. They had great material, good pleats, solid buttons. And I was like, okay, like it's okay sometimes to spend a little bit more to put money on a quality item, which ensures being able to show up with confidence and having the right tools in to be successful. And Kyle, I kid you not, I wore those black pants for no less than 12 years. The button never popped. The hem never came out. They were my go-to for everything. And that sat with me for a long time. And when I'm making choices in my business or as I'm coaching or have worked with clients in the past, being able to frame how we provide that Nordstrom's or Saks Fifth Avenue high touch quality experience is it can be hard for people, but the audience that are in similar, roles as you, don't be afraid to focus on the value and the impact and use storytelling to amplify the results and the positive candidate experiences that you have facilitated over your time as an executive recruiter. Anything to add to that? Thanks, Yaya, for the great advice.
No, I love that advice, and I will also tell you because I think this is important to hear as a candidate.
To hear the candidate. Tell me
No, well,
more.
that too, but I was gonna say I wanna say something to message the candidates. I don't care if you don't have a job, still negotiate. I understand the fear of like, I'm not working in 4 months, this
Oh,
job is great, blah, 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 blah. But I'm only saying to negotiate if there's something to negotiate, right? So if you empirically know, there's more room, absolutely. I'm not saying just to get greedy to give you an amazing offer and said, oh, someone always told me to ask for 10% more. But I will tell you that I read a statistic yesterday that said 85 people who negotiate get at least something. It may not be you ask for 10,000, it might be seven, it might be five, but you get something. And I will tell you this, for the first time, right? On both sides, all right, it's a 10th round, like either the candidate or employee might say, I'm done, it's enough, right? But I'm
yeah.
talking about first go round. In all of my years doing this, I've never had a client say, you're negotiating, how dare they, right?
So we've talked about candidate experience, and I heard that whether they're director to C suite, they're pretty much having just as much of a rough time as the Gen Pop job search folks right now. The other thing that you were saying for people that are in the job search, you said, I don't care if you have a job or not,
Thank
but
you.
to make sure that you negotiate. So why don't you explain that for our audience?
So most employers are expecting, especially at a certain level, for you to negotiate, unless it's throughout the conversation before you got to negotiations. It was kind of like soft stuff like, well, Anna, as you know, I need a base of 300 and I'd also need the ability to work from home 2 days a week. Right. And so if all of that is in there, then there might be like, dude, we did everything you asked for. Right. But if it's the traditional, you don't get into a whole lot of that. And so what I would say is if you have data to show why you should be making more, right? Bring that, right? When I say bring that, you don't have to typically email documents, but just say like, "Hey, I've talked to some of my peers, or I looked at Glassdoor," like whatever the case is, and based on my experience, I feel like my rate should be higher to this. And like I said, you may
Right.
not get all of it, but you can
Hmm.
get something. And so
Hmm.
again, the main thing I want to say, because again, I know it's easy for me to say when you don't have a job, your back's against the wall, you're just happy to have, oh my goodness, someone's finally offering me a great opportunity. They will not tell you to go kick rocks because you asked to negotiate. I promise you, I've never seen it happen. And if they do, it's probably not a company that you wanted to work at. You know what I mean? So just please keep that in mind. Please keep that in mind.
So, one of the things that you said, Kyle, for those that are in the job search, and you work primarily with director to C suite. And sadly, they're having just as rough seas out on the job search market as the general population of job search folks. And you had mentioned the importance of making sure that you negotiate. I think a lot of people struggle with that, whether they're early career or executive. So, why don't you walk us through some of your tips for folks that are navigating that and thinking, gosh, the market's so bad, I just have to take the first thing that's offered to me.
So you should definitely know your numbers. And again, I know this can be hard, especially if you've been in the same company. Even if you've moved up throughout the years, it can be very hard to know exactly what you make in your
Agreed.
organization. But a lot of people, believe it or not, they don't even know what their peers make, right? So they know what they make. So are you making 10 grand less? Da, da, da. So number one is when you come in and you're interviewing for a job, you absolutely need to know what is the market rate for that job. Now, in certain states, California,
Yeah.
New York, New Jersey, there's salary transparent laws, right? That being said, one of the trick bags the company like to use is say, "Oh yeah, the comp for this role is 200 to $800,000. Now what?" Right? And so it's a super wide one. And so in that case, what you want to do is understand where you would fit in that. And
Mhm.
you can even ask someone like in the process after you've gone through a little bit, just saying like, "Okay, where do you think that I rank?" But you also wanna have your own numbers, right? Because that's just empirical data that you can go to, and because of transparency with Glassdoor and stuff like that, it doesn't just have to be that, right? And bear in
Right.
mind, people, please bear in mind, the old school way of recruiting was, "What do you make now, Anna?" "Oh, I make 250." "All right, we can get her for 275 and blah, blah, blah." Doesn't work. That what you're
Mhm.
making now doesn't matter because guess what? You could be making more money than you should be making because your boss loves you and they're your uncle, or you could be making less because you worked there since you were an intern and you didn't jump around. So the real question to answer is if someone asks you how much do you need for this role? I'd like to know the range, right? You don't need to give them anything because again, it pigeonholes you in one or two
100.
ways. If you're on the lower band, like I said, because you
Mhm.
stayed somewhere, it's like, ooh, we can get them for cheap. If you're on the higher band because your Uncle Joe loves you and it's his company or he's your boss, oh, we can't afford them. Which either way, you're knocking yourself out. So what's more important is for you to understand, well, what would I need? What would I expect for this role? And like I said, I saw a statistic literally yesterday. 85% of people who negotiate during their offer get at least something that they're asking for.
Yeah. And I think I believe in talking about money early and often, right? And you believe in transparency in the relationship with your candidates and your clients because this is a life decision, right? We have the privilege to guide people on making a career decision where they spend the majority of their time that impacts their families and their travel and all the things, right? And so it's just a reminder to the job search population that you matter, your worth matters, and now is the time to speak up for that. When you debrief through the process with your recruiter or your key person that's driving the search with you, the other component is making sure you're capturing the particular priorities, right, of your future employer, and then being able to show how you have solved similar challenges and problems in your past role, et cetera. And that subconsciously ties, to those conversations as well. Kyle, when we first interviewed, you said your priorities were bum, bum, bum. So here's what I've done. Is that still the same? And this was 75% of my role. I can come in and get that done within the time frame established. So really candidates listening in the interviews, being able to make like micro business cases around how they can solve those problems and then even tying it to a negotiation for a bump or an additional week of vacation or a couple points on a commission structure, etc.
Stay there for a moment. So I do think when people are negotiating, the most obvious thing is they think salary, right?
There's so
Maslow's
many
high
things.
Right, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, I can't pay my mortgage in 11 months with this bonus that I'm supposed to get, I need that. I get cool, but think of what they can holistically offer, especially if you're dealing with companies that are tech-related,
Yeah.
startups, there's a lot more of a equity-focused that's the pitch, right? Like,
Mhm.
there are people that I think Netflix, they may still do that. Obviously, they're huge, they're far from a startup, but at least as recently in the last 6 or 7 years, you could kinda play with your comp, right? So you could say, "Oh, I wanna make 200K cash, but I want the rest in RSUs," right? Or vice versa, right? And so make sure you ask about those things because where a company might not be able to raise your base salary, they may be able to shoot you some RSUs, right? Imagine
Mhm.
your companies have gone crazy in the last 5 years, NVIDIA, Eli Lilly. If you had that opportunity to take more in equity, that would have paid off a lot more than just, "All right, here's an extra $400 a week, enjoy." So think of the offer holistically, and not just because it's good for you, but by doing some of those things, those can unlock tools that the client can do that's not gonna go on their annual payroll, like a bonus or like a
Absolutely, and
enhanced
it's
salary.
candidates have to be able to read the room and have some depth in their relationship with the executive recruiter like yourself to be able to have those transparent conversations, but don't try to bring something in left field that was already discussed from the client and it's a non-negotiable where they're hybrid 3 and 2 and you're coming in saying, I'm sorry, I actually need total remote and I'm moving to Saskatchewan, like Canada or something, right? As a recruiter, I've in the past have had all kinds of things. And it's like you can be creative, you can shoot your shot, but I think there is a gray area, right? And it's sometimes where it's like, great idea. Let me go back and see if I can finesse that for you. And then other times where I'm like, have you lost your damn mind? Like, we talked about this being 3 and 2. And every time I've debriefed with you, you were good with 3 and 2. Like, what has changed? Because nobody wants egg on their face. And so, to your point, like that transparency with candidates and clients is so paramount. And I truly feel like we're in a trust recession. So candidates don't trust employers, they don't trust recruiters, and it's all going kind of back and forth. Do you have any hacks on like how you navigate that, really?
So, like, the easiest thing, and this can sound so trite, just be a nice person. And so what I mean by that is if you're dealing, I don't care if it's an external recruiter or their internal recruiter, right? They're not just working on your job, they're working on talking to tons of candidates, right? And so lots of times, even at the executive level, we don't have control. There's a big Fortune 30 client sometimes telling us, hold on, we want to pause this, right? And so understanding that the people you're talking to are really there to be your advocates for the most part, right? And so do's and don'ts. So do, and I'm so excited. I had a great time meeting the team last week. Hadley had mentioned next steps were coming soon. Please let me know when you know, because I'm really excited, and I'm even more excited in your company now. Right? Cool. That's a do. A don't is, hey Anna, I had a final round interview last week. Brad said I should hear from someone. I haven't heard nothing. Any updates? Right? So I get the frustration in the second. Makes sense, but you lose nothing doing the first, and that might make the person say, you know what? Let me go ask my boss Anna. Hey, what's going on with Kyle's thing? Versus someone who
Mhm.
just looks at it and says, we'll get to you. Because guess what? They got a ton of other recs they're covering, and you are not special to them. Not saying they shouldn't treat you specially, but they've got 100 people they're doing this with every day.
Here's another do. When you're following up with a recruiter on any stage of the interview, in the email or voice message, reframe the position that you're interviewing for, the company, and when you interviewed with them. Because many of us, like I used to work high volume and I would get these messages, and anytime we're taken away from answering a question can lead to the candidate getting to the bottom of the inbox, right? So when you're a job seeker, you come in with helping the recruiter connect those dots, then we're able to get back to you right away. And then I always recommend they take it up another level and say, I'd love to schedule a debrief call with you, tell you what went well, and give them the nuggets of the good, the bad, the ugly of the conversation. So we as the advocates and recruiters, we have that data to keep making that business case and prioritize you over any competition that might be in the same search.
And I'd also say this is random as a tidbit, and I'm being selfish as a recruiter, but you'll feel me on this.
Okay.
If you're a candidate, I think sometimes candidates hide that they're interviewing with other people, other companies, because maybe they feel like the client will feel like I'm not serious about them and I want to hide it. So they think I only have eyes for them. But guess what? I've never done a search where they're only interviewing one candidate. It's fine. And what the reason why you should tell them is because if the client likes you, that gives them a bias for action. It's like, hey guys, Anna's enjoying this, but just to let you know, she's also interviewing with company X and they're moving a little bit quick. So she says you're the
Right.
first choice, but if we can get that offer, right? Versus not knowing. And so they're doing their due diligence. Maybe, well, we think Anna's a person, but let's just interview these other two just in case. And next thing, hey, Anna accepted another job. So candidates, tell your recruiter, tell them internally what you have going on. Again, never had someone say, well, if they're open to other companies, and I've never
Yeah.
had that
Then I'm
happen.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I think I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate because they tell the recruiter where they're also interviewing. In the past, recruiters would go chase that company and try to get a job order, right? Like if they weren't already working with them.
So
The
don't
other
tell the
thing is,
recruiter where it is then if you don't want to, but let them know. Cause
okay,
that's, I never,
so
yeah.
details matter, right? And so candidates, you can say, I'm interviewing with a Fortune 500 hospitality company in California with 17,000 employees, and let's see if they can figure it out, right? The other thing I've had candidates say, so if you don't tell them the company, then you avoid this problem. But the backdoor reference piece. Oh, I know people at X company. Let me call and see what they think about Kyle. And I always say we never leave high school. It follows us from the homeroom to the boardroom. Backdoor references kind of remind me of that.
How do you, I have a mixed, mostly negative, but I do see the positive. So when I say I see the positivity is this. If I was going to hire someone at my company and there's someone that I know, like, and trust in my network who worked for them, worked with them in the capacity of them doing the same thing, right? So not like
Mhm.
the job is the person's in IT, my friend is in digital marketing. They met them once a year at the all hands. They stepped in their shoe and said they're rude. Like, I don't care about that, right? But if they're like, no, no, here, I know what their work looks like. That's what I take it. But my problem is that sometimes when clients do that, Anna, you worked at Amazon when Kyle worked at Amazon. How was he? And again, we're people. You may not know how good my work is. We just may not have clicked. Or you might have said
It
something.
becomes like gossip and almost like a rumor mill of sorts. I think the way I navigated that is if I knew we had mutual, connections, and I was going to make a call and be like, oh, I'll call, my friend Scott H that worked at that same place. I would ask, typically permission, but I feel like candidates can do the same kind of due diligence in the form of informational interviews to really understand what attracted similar people to that company, what are the pros and opportunities in their current structure. So they get kind of the real of what they might be walking into. And I know people are always like, informational interviews. I'm like, those were literally the best accelerators for me when I was chasing opportunities. So that's another thing to consider. Transparency, being authentic, like being willing to invest in the partnership. And that's on both sides, the client and the candidate, because you never know. So many times, like you said, they come back around and you end up having an opportunity to represent them for a different search, or that client comes back with a second role, etc.
Also, be nice to people. Again, I once had Circle of Life. I was a hiring manager, and we had a candidate for a role reporting to them, right? It was a
Yeah.
role as a head of recruiters, right? This person had interviewed with them prior in their life, and it was so horrible that they were like, I would never hire this person because they got to view them as a candidate. And they were like, I don't want that candidate experience for anyone in my new company, right? And so again, it's a big world, but it's a small world, and how people kind of move around, you never know, right? And it's the same thing, by the way, for candidates. I had a friend reach out to me about a candidate she saw I was connected with. And sometimes recruiters, so and so is like, I don't know when I connected some conference. Or it's like, oh yeah. And this one was like oh yeah, let's have a conversation before you move forward, right? And so even as a candidate, how you show up can go, right? Like it's a big and a small world.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, 2026 has been a go year for you this far. You kicked things off speaking at Evolve. I'm curious how you're working in your speaking engagements and your conference attendance in scaling your business and growing again as you are. Talk to me just a little bit about how that is a part of your strategy, I would say.
Yeah, so like you said, got to speak at your conference, which was awesome. I'm also in June I'm speaking at another conference in Houston, which is it's so funny that what we're just talking, because the what we're gonna be talking about in that conference is gonna be all around it's at the Clean Power and Color, conference in Houston. But what we're
Cool.
talking about is all about pay negotiation. And what's interesting is what a lot of people don't talk about. Of course, "Hey, I just got a new job," but what happened do you know I won't pull up the deck and be rude, but you might be surprised how many people, when they're in a company and someone says, "Hey, you're a manager, we wanna make you a senior manager, here's your new salary," and they just say, "Great, okay," without, like, being like, "No, hold on, that's like 4.2% to do a whole 'nother job," but you right?
Yeah. Can I see the whole band? The
Right,
P1 through P5, please?
right, and so that's one of the things that we talk about is helping people do that, but to answer your question, I got to a point where it's like, "Listen, I am not a social butterfly. I am not the person who goes to a conference with thousands of people and says, 'Oh my goodness, 1,000 new friends.' I go, 'Oh my god, I gotta figure out who I need to talk to.' So, what I have realized, I'm a ROI guy. I get much more ROI in small groups, curated dinners I've hosted, going and visiting a client, a potential client one-on-one than just going to a conference. Now, part of that is because I've been very lucky enough to have like pockets of people. Listen, you get the big swinging what at a conference, everyone's in line and queue and trying to shoot their shot and whatever, right? I rather just take them out to dinner. Now they're focused on me. It's me and them, right? So my philosophy on conferences, unless there is oh, I need to go catch up with so and so, I don't
Mhm.
go unless I'm speaking just because the ROI isn't there for me. That's for me. I know other people who love that. They eat it up. They get 1,000 cards and 1,000 friends. That ain't me. That ain't me. So I think you have to know, just like a candidate, right? You have to know your strengths and weaknesses. Be honest with yourself, right? Again, it goes to 500. I applied to 500 jobs. Baby girl, you were not appropriate for 500 of those jobs. Probably like maybe only 40 you were, right? And so I get the dollar and the dream. What if someone sees something in me? But guess what? In most cases, it's gonna be AI, and the bot ain't gonna see anything in you. A
Yeah.
relationship will, but not the computers.
100%. Well, do you
Yeah.
feel like, you either apply to speak or you accept speaking engagements, as a way to build new community and you know, to share different perspectives. Obviously, I'm super passionate about handing the mic to different voices because I felt like it was all the same folks, whether you were in Nashville or Vegas or different cities. So I'm curious, like, how you select which is what and which ones you're going to be a part of. And
So
still very honored that you said yes to Evolve.
well, that's it. So obviously, there's a couple things. It's is this a group that could possibly buy from me, right? I mean, I'll go speak there because it's practice, right? But in terms of going to a place, right, I wouldn't do that, right? But I think about that. But then the other part is, I think that speaking gives people, if you're selling things, a way to see who you are when it's not just you pitching, right? It's how do you think about things? Are you innovative? Are you forward looking, right? Like what kind of like it's
Mhm.
showing your idea. So you are selling, but you're more selling yourself than selling your organization. And that's one of the reasons I do like because it's a cheat code for selling because you speak, you get a line of people wanting hey, great job. I want to ask you about this. So like that's a way, especially if you're more introverted, to get those connections versus just loping around and hey, Marcus, what do you do? Okay.
Yeah.
How do I get out of this conversation?
How can I be more awkward? So at Evolve, I curated 4 ballrooms, and I had 1 ballroom that was a little bit bigger, and then the 3 were set up with round tables, really focused on conversations, and interactions with the attendees. So, how was your experience presenting in that capacity? And, how did it feel to share your message in a more intimate, room that could only fit maybe 45 tops?
It. I definitely liked it. We had a good crowd and I was able to, make eye contact to make it a little bit more, what's what I'm looking for? Not collaborative, active, right? Because it wasn't just speaking to like a wall of people. I liked it. I liked it. I like that, especially for what I was speaking, because it was a kind of a presentation that lent itself to like pause. Let's talk about that, and let me can you give me an example? So I like that. I liked it.
That's awesome. So, for someone who's listening or thinking about attending Evolve IRL in the future next year, which is going to be either early April or very late April, and maybe they're even thinking about speaking, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, to me, one of the benefits of it is it's talent people. It's our people. It's your people, right? And so,
Uh-huh.
in addition to the speaking, which is if you like to speak and all the things I just said, and by the way, you may be a corporate person. You're not selling anything. You just want to talk about something cool and talent. That's amazing. But you will meet entrepreneurs, you'll meet corporate executives, you will meet small business owners who've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And,
Mhm.
I've kept in contact with some of the people I've met there because it's a great way to learn secrets, tips, what's working. There's so much software.
Mhm.
So like some of the people I've like you mentioned Brandon, like where I'm trying some of his stuff and James I met there. So like don't think of it as just like I'm gonna go speak, get some videos, pictures. Cool. That's awesome. That's great. That's marketing, branding. But if you're open to it, I guarantee you'll build a couple of really good relationships going, and to me, like that, it just felt good to be with people who speak my language.
Yeah. I remember you pulling me aside at the event and just being like, Anna, wow. So tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, you were not at the very first inaugural event in that moment, and I probably wasn't able to communicate in that time, but, it definitely meant a lot and I appreciated it.
I mean, it was top notch,
And
but like any of the big ones, right? It's just that it was smaller, but the quality from the libations, the snacks, the coffee station, there was always stuff like that. Having a professional photographer there, not 24/7, but during the whole
well,
thing to get your headshots
they
off.
were on it for sure.
Yeah, having a separate podcast segment, right? So like was like I said, it was just smaller, right? Like then like having one with 1,000 or 2,000 people, but and I do not take this as disrespect, but I was impressed. I won't say surprised, but impressed that on your second go around you were able to have to evolve to that
Evolve. Here we
level of
are.
quality where like
Yeah. It's like
no one walking in there would be like, "Oh, this is obviously some kind of ham and egger like person just trying to give it their." Like they'd be like, "Oh, what company is this?" It was that good. So I can only imagine what next year is going to be like. It was even from the speaker, but, like, the prep day and like, it was just really well done, really well
well,
done.
thank you, thank you. Um it hasn't felt like work, which has been the most surprising thing. And yeah, it's been tough some days and figuring out things, going from a talent leader, recruiter to, thinking I'm hot stuff as an event person. I learned some humble lessons, but I love learning and being able to be in a space to go, okay, that was not ideal. I'll fix that moving forward. So we get to go to a wide range of events from smaller 100-person to several thousand. Rapid fire, any conference pet peeves that come to mind that drive you nuts?
Me? Gosh, times they do it this is small. They overdo it with all the badges, not the main badge, but like the stickers and the icons and da 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 da. Da. Honestly, for me, I would say my biggest pet peeve when it comes to conferences are not enough. And again, maybe this is why I like this the chance that you have smaller rooms, but like you're just in a hall for the whole time. And it's just like you meet who's over here, you meet who's over there, but it's not
Right.
like set up. It's like, all right, we're just it's very passive. You just watching people. No, I'm not saying every
Right.
conference I want it to be like, all right, everyone stand up, turn to the person next to you and spend 10 minutes talking about this. And no, you don't need that. But something that is more dynamic and gives you a reason to move around, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
And that's why I tried to have smaller breakout sessions. I want to have more of an executive track and maybe an IC track next year,
Mm,
as well as, like you said, not like speed dating networking, but maybe even having a breakout place for people that want some structured networking, right? I mean, one of the things that I do really well that is showcased in our executive tables, which is smaller groups in the morning and afternoon, and then either fringe dinners at conferences or regional dinners for my vendors, is really being able to be a conversation starter and the person who kind of is the trust sparker, if you will. That's like the wrong word, but I study people and the way my brain just organically works. I'm able to make very smart connections between people. And then, as the host that is partnering, I'm the person that's moderating or gently asking to make adjustments, which are small things, but make a large impact on the
mhm.
experience for both the vendor and the attendee. And what that might look like is, Kyle, can you go take the seat of Sam over there and tell Sam to come sit next to Tabitha? And the value between that, and then I would go over and say, hey, Tabitha, this is why you need to know Sam, blah, 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 right? And orchestrating kind of moving people, especially after appetizers, because if the vendor's spending, say, anywhere from 6 to 10K on this dinner, one, people need to know why they're there, right? Two, we want to talk to more than four people. If we're stuck at that long table, like think about the ROI that you're missing out on if you're the CFO and you're only talking to one, two, three, four, five people total, and you have a table of 20, right? So having a host that can maneuver that and also help the sponsors build the trust and get the market research with the right questions that aren't like a scripted formal networking conversation. So I enjoy those smaller intimate environments, and I'm seeing more trends and data talking about how there's going to be just an explosion of smaller immersive activations, and part of that contributes to Gen Z saying they want to go analog, which
Yep.
I find fascinating. Other red flags for you, and then I can share a couple of mine.
In terms of what? The conferences?
Conferences, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, where are they? Right? Like, I'm
They
thinking about the
don't
things I
have to
think
all
before.
be in Vegas.
But like what hotel? And then also like, does it seem like they're building the plane as they go, right? Like, is it a
Yeah.
month before and they're just like, session's coming soon, like they don't even know, right? Like those are the things that I'm like, I don't know. You're not giving me confidence that this is
That
gonna go
this is
well.
gonna fly, yeah, which I'm as a self-proclaimed procrastinator that put my first event together in 69 days, and this year felt like it was almost the same, even though people knew it was coming. Our
Wow.
industry has a terrible habit of buying tickets 2 weeks before the event, like, that's a pet peeve of mine. The other is lack of water, okay? This girl talks a lot at conferences, and if I can't find my water, I'm dying. And then in some of these big expo halls, like, why the heck is there not bathrooms on the backside? Like, you have to walk a quarter of a mile from your booth to go potty. It's amazing.
Yeah, I once and not knowing where to go in. I was at a conference, it was Miami Conference Center, and it got to the point, even the person who was trying to show me, he was like, "I don't know." He was, like, trying to open every door, so, like, it's Miami, it's hot as heck, and we're just, like, walking around this big thing looking for a door, like yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that was
and that's
that.
like the pre-event communications, and I even found one that has hacked the whole name badge thing, and no one I'm like, "Can we put name badges that actually are, like, on the middle of our chest, so I'm not looking at Kyle's crotch and, they're not looking at our chest?" I'm
That's
like, "Who
hilarious.
are you?" I
That's
know.
hilarious.
Look at weird things, and paying attention to, again, temperature. I went to an event this summer where I was like, I'm sorry, but this was totally planned by a man because there was like no shade and no fans anywhere outside. I'm like, although we were just dying. So water's a big thing for me. Again, logistics. I also like being able to have independence, like when I'm in that conference attendee space, like that I can get out, right? That's another like weird anxiety thing for me.
Mhm.
So either knowing I can easily get an Uber or get access to my car. And then, like you said, not having spaces for all types of humans, right? I've seen a huge rise of tranquility rooms, mother nursing rooms, other just, take a hot moment breather type of experiences for attendees, especially at the bigger events. And then just being so back to back. While I definitely pack in the content, I do think sometimes scheduling a little downtime in between things can certainly, I think, improve attendance if people have a second to go back and change their clothes or wash their face or something like that. Have you
Yeah.
noticed an increase in post conference events, or has it always been that way from what you've seen on the conference circuit?
You mean post-conference, do you mean, like, during the evenings events, or do you mean, like what do you mean?
Yeah, so, like, you're at a big conference, and what I noticed when I was in Vegas recently is vendors on the first day were running around to other vendors and attendees and being like, "Please come to my fancy dinner, my influencer dinner, da 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 da." And I was like, "Oh my god, what a waste of money for you're setting up the booth, you're trying to do lead gen, and then now your dinner's in 2 hours and your table's not full, and you've reserved a space for 20 people, and you're gonna spend a couple $1,000, like, that's where I was like, "Oh, that's so sad. I can help."
That's no, for sure, that's poor planning, like, that should be set up
Mhm.
beforehand, right? Like, you should know exactly who your people are, and maybe you have some backups or whatever. But, yeah, I found that, to be honest, that's been my favorite part of some of the things is, like, the dinners afterwards, you know what I mean? Because then you get to sit, literally break bread, get to know people, talk, like, those are fun, those are fun.
Well, and I've always been the person that's, like, gathered the conference misfits and just put, like, a dinner together, and some of those are even the best because you're like, "Wow, I'm sitting next to my best ICP that I could ever have, connected with." So, for attendees, like, doing the research ahead of time, telling people that you don't have a dinner so you can get an invite or ask to attend. I think a lot of people feel that I'm not cool enough because I didn't get invited to that dinner kind of vibe, and so for those that are more experienced, I'm speaking to you, like, be a conference BFF and bring someone new into the mix, especially anyone that is earlier in your career. For those of us that are more senior, part of elevating the world of work is sharing with these junior up and comers who are going to be leading what we've built so far. So just be a nice
And I
person and
think that
include.
for a lot of the younger generation, to your point, especially if they graduated around COVID, et cetera, it's very important for them to understand and, they might be working remote to see, oh, this is how humans interact on a business level. And I mean, listen, we're in the relationship business, like we were talking about
They
offline.
can learn so
Price
much.
matters, but I've seen relationships, like strong relationships, trump price way more than I've seen someone say, "Oh, I love you," but if we're talking reasonable, amounts, right? And so, like, getting out and building those relationships, because the scariest thing that I had not scared for me, is when someone's like, "Oh, Kyle, can you talk to my friend?" Or it's someone I know, they're looking for a role, and they've been at the same company for 20 years. They might be a partner in, like, a Big 4 company, but their whole network is in those walls, and then someone says, "There's no room for you in the end," and they're just like, "I don't know anybody else," right? And so making people understand the value of
And
make it
I don't
authentic.
know how to start these conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's tons of opportunities. Most of all, I want to thank you for your friendship and mentorship. And I think the story of our evolution speaks to the power of putting yourself in these spaces and having some strategy, but also open to what connections and collaborations could happen. Kind of like that Steve Jobs quote where he says, you can't connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect them looking backwards. And you have to trust in destiny, intuition, karma, that those dots will connect in the future. And ours sure have, from a dinner to speaking to other strategy sessions, now to a podcast episode, and hopefully so much more.
It's amazing where a good relationship will take you. You never know.
Exactly, exactly. So we talked about the human experience of the candidate side, as well as a tiny bit of an employer brand. We might have to have a second episode on that. And then kind of your journey in 26 and what are you looking forward to the rest of this year and what should we be on the lookout for what you're building and how can we celebrate and support you?
Yeah, no, listen, feeling good about this year, even though it's halfway over, which is crazy. But, just really doing great work. That is one of the things that I've always thought about it, but especially in recent years, we've got a great team that's doing top-notch work, which I love. And so just continuing to get the word out there so that we get more and more engagements, doing, like I said, doing some speaking, etcetera. But just trying to
Okay.
balance, not work-life balance, because I know that's gone for me, but just
Yeah.
trying to balance
That's not good, Kyle.
listen, let's be honest, if you wanna have a certain level of success, like, you could hang out all day with your friends or, like, it's a choice, right? And so, I know what I like. I like nice stuff, man, I'm sorry. It is what it is,
Ah,
and I like to be
you and me
accomplished, so
too.
but but what's the point of working all the time where you don't get to enjoy it? So, for me, it's always finding that equilibrium of, like, yes, I'm working hard to achieve my goals, but I'm also making time to enjoy them with the people I care about. So that's what's on it for me. Accomplish my goals, spend time with the people I care about.
Awesome. Awesome. So, for those of you that are listening, if you're a company that is considering opening a role for a director to an executive, and you want to know that the person leading that search is someone who prioritizes authenticity and transparency, Kyle and Creative Talent Endeavors is your go to person. And even for job seekers at that level that may want to have you represent them. And I understand you work with candidates all throughout the United States, right? You're
Absolutely.
awesome. Okay. Well, I hope to see you at the next Evolve and can't thank you
Hopefully
enough
before
for.
then, but definitely at the next one.
Yes, absolutely. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. Kyle, you're amazing. And to everyone out there, just keep shining, keep evolving, and keep listening. We're here to evolve together.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Evolve Talent and HR show. If the conversation landed, share it, tell a leader, pass it forward. That is the multiplier in action. One connection at a time, building momentum across our community. And that is what Evolve is. We build the rooms where connection compounds into impact. So don't sleep on the in person experiences, the IRL conferences, the executive tables, the fringe events, our community. Show up. That's where the multiplier multiplies. If you know, you know. Head over to evolve-conference.com to see what's evolving and how to stay connected. We'll see you next time.